My redneck mother sang redneck mother, cooking us kids something to eat. Daddy drank tequila like Pancho Villa. When the Cowboys won or they got beat, that's Texas. That old Lone Star gravel making old truck rattle like to get your boot bit. Stepped on snake, Lord have mercy, the ground gets thirsty. Better buy a resistol or find some shade. That's Texas. That's Texas.
Hello and welcome. That was That's Texas by Cody Johnson, and this is the Giant World of Baseball podcast, a podcast about international baseball and sometimes the San Francisco Giants. I'm your host, the Frilled Shark, or Jacob if you please, and in this episode I'm joined by the international baseball guy, Shawn Spradling. How's it going in the Lone Star State? How are your holidays, man?
It's going well. The holidays were really good. Texas is not too cold during the holidays, which is pretty nice. I'm in Dallas, where it gets a little bit colder than I'm from Austin, but I'm living in Dallas right now. So in Austin, there was no snow over the holidays, but actually in Dallas, a week ago, we got a little bit of snow, which was you don't really see very often. So that was pretty nice. But doing pretty well. Work's been busy, but really excited to come on the pod.
Thank you for agreeing to do this. I'm a huge fan. I've been a huge fan, since you started doing your international baseball coverage. I was on a pod, the baseball podcast. Sorry if I'm forgetting the exact name, but I talked about how I was a fan of their show before I went on it, and I was a fan of you before I had you on here. I have very fond memories of when I was getting ready to leave my home and start my first real job in 2023, of listening to you and other people talk about the tournament upcoming, and it holds a very near and dear place to my heart. So thank you for agreeing to come on here.
That is super flattering. Honestly, the fact that you have memories of my content is honestly just the most flattering thing. And also you've been posting international baseball content for forever as well. So you're no stranger to the international baseball community. So I appreciate the stuff that you post, the graphics that you've made recently with your predictions or your projections for the WBC qualifiers. Super cool. And I know firsthand that those graphics don't happen overnight. So I know it took a lot of research and really good work.
Yeah, thank you. I might try to make a video covering those rosters, because I love the graphics so much. My friend Rosie did such a good job with them that I was I have to put these in a video or something, because more people should see these. So if I'm able to edit together a video and get it out before rosters get announced, knock on wood, I'm definitely gonna try to do that. And thank you
totally
for that.
should.
Yeah, they did take a long time. A lot of finagling, a lot of going back to my friend Rosie and being actually, can you switch these guys? Sorry. Or can you take this guy out and put this guy in? When I heard about, I learned about, for instance, Ethan Buckley is a South African player going to play D1 baseball. And I was how did I not know about this guy and have him on the roster, put him on there?
I will say that's one of the funniest things about making graphics and posting the graphics, because you can have a spreadsheet and that's one thing. And you got great data, to log from WBC or whatever kind of rosters you have. But then once you post a graphic, it's posted. You can't edit that anymore. So I remember the graphics that I made, whether it was the Dream Team graphics or the WBC projections last year, I would post it. And then immediately after that, people would be these are great, but you forgot this guy. And I'm there's no way. How did I forget this name? So I totally understand that. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, at a certain point, you just got to be I did my best. It's out there.
Yeah.
Please leave constructive criticism, and
I'll take all the feedback you have, but yeah they're done.
Exactly. And that kind of leads me into where we are now, which is the start of 2025. It's a new year. I have some New Year's resolutions. It's a good time to reflect on the upcoming year and also the past year. And in the spirit of that, I thought today, at the midpoint of the decade of the 2020s, God saying that made me feel really old. Would be the perfect time to do a retrospective and also a look into the future of what international baseball has in store in this decade. And you know, who better to do this episode with than the international baseball guy, Shawn Spradling?
No, this is great. I love this concept. I had never thought about doing that before. So I'm really excited for this. A whole decade of baseball.
Yeah, a lot of people like ask me like, hey, you know, what can you do this kind of content, or what do you think about making a video about this? And I'm like, you know, like that's kind of cool, but like the things I do, because like I'm not getting paid to do this. I don't have a Patreon. Like I
Yep.
have a full-time job. This is completely just a hobby of mine. Like I only have time and the effort to like do the things that I really want to do. So like that's why I try to find like, you know, as kind of like creative and like niche things that really appeal to me, like you know, like what Jeff Duda does, where like he covers like every single play of every single tournament somehow, and also being like fully employed is incredible. And there's like, you know, there needs to be a space for that, and that work is really valuable. But like I couldn't do that. Like that would drive me insane. Um,
Yeah, I was actually just talking to someone about that recently. Just like how specifically with Jeff, like it is insane, like the amount of information that he's able to put out from every league, from like all these players that like players I've never heard of, or like leagues that like I try to follow, but like having a full-time job, like doing fit stuff with family, putting out my own content. Like I cannot. I've tried and I can't spread myself that thin. Kudos to him because like he gets into the nitty gritty of international baseball to the point that like I wish I was able to do that and like have the time to do that, but being fully employed and like not like you said not getting paid for any of my own content. I just have time to put out the stuff that I like, which is mostly WBC related. So there's definitely like that fills a void that the international baseball world needed. But it's a lot of fun to be able to cover like the WBC and stuff as well.
yeah. All right, so why don't we start reviewing the decade so far? So, starting in 2020, which was 5 years ago, oh my God.
That is so wild to think about.
Yeah, I like I have core memories of like sitting in my house during lockdown or whatever, just watching Yu Darvish pitch his ass off for the Cubs,
Yeah.
like just by myself in my room. And like that was 5 years ago. I was in college, and like just like how much stuff has happened since then is like pretty crazy.
At the beginning of 2020, that was my last semester of college. So I actually, right when all the COVID stuff happened, I know that we'll get into that, but that's when I was graduating. So I actually graduated in my wife's parents, my in-laws, in their driveway.
Oh my
So
God.
we had like a little because I couldn't even go on campus. It was like a whole semester from home. So we did a little mini graduation ceremony in their driveway.
That's yeah, that's like peak COVID stuff. I know my sister had like an online high school graduation, so like there's a
Mm.
picture of her, like her graduation picture from high school is like of her in our old backyard with our like holding up our cat wearing her cap, which is
Oh,
funny. But
crazy memories.
yeah, like 2020, there's not much to say because COVID like really hit very early in the year and just wiped out basically everything. The
Hmm.
one thing that like almost happened but then got canceled that I think is worth maybe discussing is the 2020 World Baseball Classic qualifiers. Because
Yeah.
I remember I was living in a shared house with you know, college housemates, and I was over at my other friend's like shared apartment, and they had a really nice TV, and I was like, "Oh, guys, can I come over and watch the WBC qualifiers on your really big nice TV because I don't have one?" And they were
Yeah.
like, "Sure." And then like 2 weeks later, everything was canceled.
Yeah. It's, oh man, that was like, I was so frustrated with that too. But of course, there's way worse things that that happened with the pandemic. But that was one thing that for like the international baseball world, we were just like clinging on to, just like so excited for it. It had been years since the last WBC, and we had finally were able to like watch qualifiers again, and then it got canceled. But yeah, that season for me, honestly, the biggest visual that comes to mind is just like the games that were played in different leagues, but specifically MLB because we're here, with just no fans. Like
Yeah.
that will forever be like burned into my memory. Just like watching these MLB games with totally empty stadiums, with you can hear like the conversations happening in the dugout and like the coach yelling at the field. It was just the most bizarre, disorienting feeling ever.
Yeah. Like again, like I have memories of you, Darvish. Like there's that one that the one get playoff wild card game where the Cubs got eliminated by the Marlins, and it was you, Darvish versus Sixto Sanchez, which is like that is like one of the most like obscure like bar trivia like matchups of all time, probably. Like when the Marlins won the wild card in the COVID tour of 2020, like who were the two starting pitchers? Like
What a wild matchup. That's so, I would have never guessed that they even ever matched up. That's so funny.
yeah, and like thinking about the 2020 WBC qualifiers, like and what we maybe lost then was sort of like already seeing what we're seeing in 2025, where the WBC, like the MLB, or sorry, MLB wanted to like downsize and consolidate the qualifiers, where everything was supposed to be in Tucson, and they didn't decrease the number of teams, but everything was in Tucson. It was like during spring training over a very short period of time.
Yeah.
Um, and I think we're seeing some of maybe that this year with the contracted qualifiers, and it might be a point of discussion come next qualifiers for the WBC for the 2029 edition, if there even are qualifiers.
Yeah.
And those qualifier matchups, like looking at the matchups, like there's a chance Germany got gypped out of their first World Baseball Classic appearance in 2021 because their team had like peak Marcus Solbach. They had Brendan Donovan committed to play when he was a minor leaguer, and like
Yeah.
I think Max Kepler, I don't know if he ever committed. I don't think any major leaguers committed to play, but and it got canceled before that point. But like he could have been there, and like because of that, you know, they don't qualify in 2022, and they're back again in 2025, and maybe they won't even qualify this time around.
Yeah, it's so interesting, like to think about the what ifs or the what could haves, because like going from 2020 to 2022 for qualifiers, a 2 year difference, that's a pretty massive change for a national team. You like you said, Germany looked very different in 2020 than they did in 2022, and it makes me wonder like what teams may have qualified or may not have qualified if they were held in 2020. Like I wonder how different Czechia would have been if some of those guys on the national team in 2022 either weren't on the team or weren't as experienced in 2020, or if Eric Sogard was still on a 40-man roster and didn't want to play in the qualifiers. It's just interesting to think about the differences that could have been. Or another thing that comes to mind is like the Philippines, how they were supposed to be in qualifiers and then all of a sudden weren't. Like I wonder if they were in qualifiers in 2020, if that would have been any different for them. But it's
Yeah.
really interesting to think about.
And so instead, we got the Argentina Linsanity run that culminated in them not being invited back in 2025.
Uh, Brutal. It was so fun to watch them too. Same with Pakistan. Like it was so fun to see them in qualifier. And I know that you and I could go like on and on about how we wish there were more teams in qualifiers, and maybe someday. Um, but that was a ton of fun to watch teams like Argentina and Pakistan. But of course, that's 2022. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, 2021 sees the return of baseball to the Olympics. The in air
Yes.
quotes 2020 Tokyo Olympics played in 2021. Um, and it's a big deal for a lot of reasons. Like baseball was gone for like 12, 13 years from the Olympics. Last time it was played was in Beijing in 2008, I think. Um, it's back. Japan finally wins their first gold medal because they had never won a gold medal in Olympic baseball, which is insane to think about. It was just Cuba, 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 like every
Yeah.
single time. And I remember I was like I was away from any technology. I was at a, let's call it a summer camp of sorts, work related, that summer. And I come back and I'm like, okay, I gotta watch the Olympic baseball. What's going on? And we see like Yamamoto and Kaimatira. I think Kaimatira didn't do so well there, but Yamamoto and Kaimatira and I think Seiya Suzuki was there, like all
Hmm.
balling out. And I think wasn't Julio Rodriguez on that Dominican team?
Yep, that was one of the biggest like visuals that I have, like seeing him in the Dominican like national team lineup before he was even MLB. That was like, oh man, that's a pretty big prospect. I can't wait to see him in MLB. I wonder if he's going to do anything, and then obviously explodes the next year. But that was a pretty fun one.
Yeah, and who could forget Giants legend Scott Kazmir pitching for Team USA?
Yeah,
Joe Ryan, I think he was USA's ace, and also another Bay Area legend, Joe Ryan from, I think
Joe
he's from,
Ryan. I think Shane Boz was on that team.
yeah, yeah, that sounds
Um,
right.
um, why am I blanking on his name? First baseman for the Red Sox, great player.
Oh, Tristan Casas, was it
Tristan
Cas?
Casas was on the team. Yeah, it was honestly a really fun USA team, but no one could beat Japan. They were just stacked.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of funny that they played in Yokohama, I'm pretty sure, like at the Baystar Stadium, because
Yeah,
like, I mean it's in Tokyo, but it's pretty far away from the city center. But I guess like
yeah,
any excuse to when you have weather to get out of the Tokyo Dome, get out of the Tokyo Dome.
yeah. They're like, we might as well use this if we can. I think one of the coolest stories from that Olympic baseball season, though, was Eddie Alvarez playing in both the Winter and the Summer Olympics, and him being
Oh,
like one of the
right.
flag bearers. You remember him?
Yeah, I remember
On
that.
I think he does like speed skating maybe
Yeah, yeah, that sounds
in the
right.
winter. Yeah, and just the fact that he was playing on the national team for baseball too, and he was the flag bearer, and so that was just such a cool part of that team because we didn't have a bunch of MLB players filling out the roster, but it was still so many like players that just like desperately like wanted to be there and represent the country for the USA. So it was really cool to see.
Yeah. And another storyline I think of in 2021 is, of course, the year of Otani. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
I I think like kind of the 2021 Olympics, 2021 Otani is sort of like the ushering in of the new golden age of maybe Japanese international baseball. Do you remember like anything specific from Otani's like year in 2021?
I think that I was so frustrated when he got hurt the year prior because it 2020 that he had his first Tommy John, or was it before that? Was it
It was
2019?
his rookie year,
18?
2018. He was hurt and he was still hitting in 2019, and then he tried to come back pitching in 2020 and had like one appearance where he walked like seven Oakland A's or something like
Yeah,
that.
that's what it was. Like we didn't get to see him. It was like yet another year in 2020 of not seeing him pitch. And so like other than that one horrible appearance. So like in 2021, I just remember wanting to tune into every single start that he was on the mound because it was like it's been forever since we've seen him pitch. This is like something that who knows? Like we've had a couple years of him not being able to do both. Who knows how long like we'll be able to have it in the future? So I need to like tune into every start, and it did not disappoint, man. It's just like we are truly in the era of Otani, and he that was the beginning of it. Um, yeah, it was fun. It was like the only time that I would ever want to watch the Angels, but it was I would watch every start that he did.
Yeah, my uncle is a diehard Angels fan from Anaheim, and he is just I just remember talking with him those over those years with Otani, and
Oh,
it's brutal out there.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Yeah, especially just with him going to the across town. That's just heartbreaking.
Yeah. I vividly remember like his first start back, like the first start he had in 2021 on the mound. I was like, okay, I'm watching this. I'm seated. I had like came back from class to the tiny apartment I was sharing with three of my friends, but we had that really large flat screen TV that they had previously. I turned it on, and when he hit that home run off of Dylan Cease and Matt Verskirchen popped off, I was like, oh my God, we are so back.
Oh, it just that just makes me joyful inside to think about. That was
Yeah.
his. So I mean, that was on the mound. On so I'm looking at his stats. I'm looking at Baseball Reference right now. He had a 157 OPS plus, 26. Oh yeah, 26 stolen bases. Nothing close to this year, but right before. He'd only had 7 and 12 in 2019, and then the shortened season in 2020. So I remember seeing, like, watching him and being like, oh yeah, he can move too. Like he's finally starting to steal some bases. And then he ended up over doubling it in 2024. But I remember the stolen bases were kind of a big thing for me too, because I had him in in fantasy that year. So I was like, oh yeah, so he's pitching. He has power and he's going to steal me some bases. Like this is going to win me the championship. And it did. I won that year. So it was, thank you, Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah. Good. I had him in fantasy this year. I did not win.
Oh,
But I did not win, but it was great to see. And another thing I remember like tweeting about was like in 2022, getting a little bit ahead of myself. Like he had this year with the bat where he had like a 157 OPS plus. And then the
yeah.
next year, 2022, he's really good on the mound. He has like a 150 something ERA plus, I think. And I'm like,
Yeah.
so is the ceiling for Ohtani both ways like 150, 150? And then like 2023 happens and he's like a 175 OPS plus hitter like last year, and then 2024 like even better. I'm like, so if he could like if he keeps this up and then like comes back from the arm surgery like better, if that's possible, like I know the success rate of like second like major elbow surgery not great, but he's also Shohei Ohtani. Betting against him is not a good idea.
There's
um
always that qualifier that I'm just like, yeah, we can argue that as much as we want about his shoulder, about whatever like injuries he's had, but also at the end of the day, at the end of all this, he's still Shohei Ohtani, and that has never stopped him from doing whatever he wants.
Yeah, so like is the ceiling like the single best season of all time, like 175 OPS plus, 175 ERA plus, like 20 WAR single season or something like that? You know, I, a part of me dies because he's on the Dodgers and I'm a diehard Giants fan, but that would be pretty crazy.
I wouldn't put it past him.
No, definitely not. Do you have anything else for 2021?
No, that was it's funny because I think that year I actually watched a little less baseball than in previous years because that was the year I got married.
Right,
So
right.
I was different priorities.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I do remember Shohei being the star of the show all year.
Yeah. I remember like just being in class and I had my phone on my desk because, I can't, modern child can't pay attention to anything for more than 2 minutes. And like I
Yeah,
just get a new push notification. Shohei Ohtani hits solo home run, season total 39 or whatever, and then hits another home run. But
crazy.
with 2021 done, let's talk about 2022. And for me, there's one like really, really big thing that happened in 2022. And that was Czechia qualifying for the World Baseball Classic with a roster made up of like entirely born and raised Europeans, born, raised, and developed Europeans. I could be wrong. Maybe there's one or two of those guys, but that European qualifier was something to watch. That was like so entertaining. I remember like um, I was done with college, but I was living still in my college town of Davis, California,
Mm.
waiting to start my first job. And like I was very like I was unemployed and just keeping up with every one of those games and like Spain was immediately comes out of the gate balling out. The Great Britain, balling out. Harry Ford going crazy,
Yeah.
and Germany shits the bed as per usual. South Africa kind of tough loss to Spain in the first game, and then they get eliminated by Germany. But like those last couple games, like that first qualification game where the GB beat Spain and sent them to face Czechia was insane. And then that Czechia Spain game was like another level tense. Like Ronald Madrano pitching his ass off versus Martin Schneider also pitching his ass off. Merrick the Punisher Kloop went deep, I think.
Yeah. I think he did. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's like what my 2022 international baseball memory for sure.
Yeah. Oh, 100% the same for me. This was so 2022. This was the fall of 2022. So September, I believe. It was that was when I was just starting to like make my own WBC content too. So it was like right in the throes of me even getting into the like social media side of the WBC and international baseball. So it was like peak. Like I need to watch every single game. I need to make sure that I know everything that's happening, and to watch those games specifically in Regensburg, like you were talking about. Some of those games are like some of my favorite games, like some of the best games that no one's ever seen, like the Czechia versus Spain final game. Like it was just to see them come back from losing 21-7 just a couple of days before Czechia to Spain, and then to come back and beat them in the final to qualify for their first WBC ever with teams that could not have been like more different on like the makeup of who was on those teams. Like
Yeah, yeah.
Czechia being like fully, yeah, like fully, like you said, homegrown guys with day jobs. The next morning went to work versus like Spain, who was made up of like every other, like every Latin American country had like a player on that team.
Yeah, Spain with two Spanish-born players being Justin Connell, El Blanco Nino, who lived there. He lived there for 10 years. Like he grew up in Spain for a while
Yeah,
before moving, and he apparently speaks fluent Spain Spanish. So, he's pretty Spanish. And then Jorge Balboa, like who didn't even pitch in a game. So,
yeah.
yeah,
Didn't even do anything for the team, but then the rest of them, a lot of Dominicans, Cubans, Venezuelans, like
yeah.
it's very, very stark contrast on national teams. But it was just such a like Czechia wins the like best story for me in 2022. Just like the high school teachers and sales reps and firemen, like their manager who made it to help them make it to the first WBC ever was a neurologist. Like
Yeah.
that's just like the craziest story ever. And to see them now, like a couple years later, still able to build on that success on in their domestic league, and then also like preparing for the next WBC already. It's just really cool to see. Marek Kloop stole my heart that year.
Yeah.
Like that team was awesome. But yeah, I do remember also like Harry Ford was a big deal. Noelvi Marte was another top prospect that played in those qualifiers. So a lot of the prospects were really fun to see.
Yeah, if Merrick Kloop, if things work out in Tokyo and he gets a shot with an MLB team, he'll be the second most attractive man in baseball behind Max Kepler.
I can agree with that.
Um, and yeah, I remember like I was grocery shopping during that final last game, and like I was like on like box score, like on my phone, the live thing, and I was like, I have to get home. I have to get home. Like drove back home to like watch the final couple outs. It was
Yeah.
it was really special.
I remember watching some of those games since it was in Europe. I remember watching them in the morning when I was at work. I was like, had my work computer up and then I had my laptop on the side, like trying to watch as much as possible and like having to like rewind some things. And I was posting about it already on Twitter too. So it was, I don't remember. I feel like I was very unproductive for that week of work, but it was very much worth it because it was just a blast.
Oh yeah. All right.
And then we didn't even talk about the Panama qualifiers, but
Yeah, and like you mentioned, there we're completely not even talking about the Panama, the Rod Carew pool in the qualifiers, which wasn't as good. I would say it was maybe more unhinged Because like you had Pakistan with like their starting pitcher was like a 17-year-old high school player or whatever, and like Argentina, like who no one had any expectations for, went crazy. And Brazil started out super strong and then fell flat on their face and lost to Nicaragua and Panama. Um, yeah, that was certainly something. I don't know if you want to break it down more.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much covered it. I think that that's pretty accurate. I would say that Regensburg was a more heartwarming and fun. I think that Panama was a little bit more unhinged.
Yeah,
Like the I will say that I feel like Pakistan versus Argentina is like one of the most obscure like baseball matchups you can come up with. Like they're just completely different parts of the world, and I bet you like most people from both of those countries would be like, we have a national team.
yeah,
So
exactly.
it was pretty cool to see. It was very niche for the international baseball community, but yeah, Brazil was frustrating. That was disappointing because they looked so strong at the beginning. I'm really glad that Nicaragua was able to qualify, though, because unfortunately, even though they didn't requalify in the WBC, I liked that team a lot. I thought that they had a lot of really solid players, and Panama just deserves to be in the WBC.
Yeah, Panama, like just winning two and leaving was
Yeah,
one of the funniest things ever. Where like they had like a sellout crowd for like one game at that
yeah.
qualifier, and then Panama was like, "All right, we're done. See you later, guys."
Like they barely had to try. They were just like, okay, this is more of a formality than anything.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about Nicaragua because like I don't find their brand of play where it's like, okay, we like our pitchers are good, but they're not like really, really good by WBC and MLB standards. And
Yeah.
we qualify by beating up on worse teams in the sense of we
Mm.
beat them like 2-0. And I'm
Yeah.
like, to me, like when you qualify by beating everyone like 2-1, 3-1, 1-0, and then you get to the WBC and immediately get punched in the face by a very weak Israel team. I'm like, guys, like, was that really it? Like, I just
Yeah.
I don't personally find that super engaging, but I know Jeff really likes Nicaraguan baseball.
Yeah,
Um,
it's fun. I like Nicaragua, and the nice thing about Nicaragua for me is that they actually have established baseball like history in the country, whereas a lot of these other countries that are so new to like playing in WBC qualifiers or having a national team, um, I think they will get there. Like I I think that there is no doubt in my mind that Pakistan is going to be in the WBC eventually. Now it could be decades from now, or it could be soon. I don't know. With Nicaragua, they actually have like an established baseball presence, which is at least comforting to see. Like, okay, if they make it to the WBC, yeah, I think that they have a reason to say that they're there. That being said, I agree that it's not very convincing when you beat like these very new young teams by like one run and then you get just smoked in the WBC. That's why like I think that if Brazil was in the 2023 WBC, they probably would have had a better run at it than Nicaragua because they actually have MLB players that could play for them to add to that team. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see with the next qualifiers, but that qualifier was pretty unhinged.
yeah. Do you have anything else for 2022?
Uh, No, I mean, the qualifiers was the big one for me. That was the biggest memory, other than just personal, like my own. That's when I made the Dream Team graphics. So like, very sentimental baseball year for me because that was the year that I was like, who could be eligible for Team Great Britain? Why is this guy from this former British island eligible for this team? Just like looking into the nitty gritty of the
Yeah.
WBC eligibility, but qualifiers was the definitely the overarching like highlight for me.
Yeah, who could forget Vance Worley is eligible for Great Britain because his mom is from Hong Kong when Hong Kong was part of the British Empire. Ergo, he was born, his mom was born in Great Britain. Therefore, he is eligible by WBC rules.
Oh, I love it. That I remember 2022 was the year of the like mentions in my like tweet comment like replies of just like wait, how is that guy eligible? Or like, wait, they have a national team, or that guy's not British. He's mom's from Hong Kong. I remember there's just so much argument all that fall and winter of like, this guy's eligible, this guy's not, or it was a fun time.
Yeah, yeah. Making sense of it all drives me insane sometimes.
Agreed.
So with 2022 out of the way, let's move to 2023, which of course is the event. It is the 2023 World Baseball Classics year. From Tom DeBlock's first pitch ball until Shohei Ohtani's swinging strikeout of Mike Trout, it was awesome.
It was as close to perfect of a tournament as we could have hoped for. Like, just like how much lead up there was in the international baseball community. I won't say that there was much talk, even just a couple months before, but once the hype started to build and over the year previous, like, oh my goodness, it could not have been a more fun WBC. Each of the pools was like so different from each other, and like experiencing watching like the games at home in Texas, but watching the ones in Taiwan versus like the ones in Tokyo, and like waking up at 3 or 4 in the morning for those games, or staying up until then to watch the games, watching games until 7 a.m. and trying to go to work at 8 a.m. It was just the most absurd like 2 weeks of my life, but it was a bunch of fun.
Yeah, I think there's some tweet by Yaku Cosmopolitan where he was like, I covered every single game in Tokyo. I have not slept more than like 3 hours any of these days. I've gone to every single game. I wouldn't trade it for the world or whatever.
I feel that so hard. I remember setting my alarm for 4 a.m. like 5 days in a row, and by the last day I was like, I'm not even going to remember any of this game. I'm not even awake for it, even though I actually am conscious. I'm just like so out of it, but it was a blast.
Yeah, for me, it was crazy because I was in the process of moving from California to Oklahoma when the tournament started. I sat down on my great aunt's living room in Santa Fe, New Mexico, to tune in to watch Tom DeBlock throw a first pitch ball in a folding chair, might I add, like a camping chair, not even like an actual chair. And when he threw that first pitch ball and the fucking Vuvas, sorry, pardon me, pardon my French,
No, you're good.
the Vuvuzelas we were going off for
Yeah.
Team Cuba, I was like, oh boy, this is gonna be a game.
Oh yeah, who can forget the horn guy from Cuba? The like just like kind of silent throughout the stadium, but then you just hear this blaring horn behind home plate for the whole game. Like, oh man, there's just so many memories from the horn guy to Lars Newbar's salt pepper shaker thing,
Yeah.
to like the USA with their salute, or Taiwan with their salute. Like, man, there's so many like visuals. I'm very visual, so I try to remember like these like small obscure moments from things to help me remember them well. So I love things like the horn guy running back and forth behind that game.
Yeah, visuals for me. Yu Chang hitting a grand slam off of Derek West in high leverage because Hensley Newlands is certainly a manager. Definitely one of the managers of all time. And then R.A. Franson blowing 95 right by Sue Lin to strike him out. It's another key visual. That's also
How
on my
about
channel trailer.
how about Italy's mustache team across the
Oh my
team, and then their
God.
espresso machine in the dugout?
The funniest part about Italy's espresso machine is like I'm a coffee snob. Like I'm like almost a coffee nerd. And like their espresso machine wasn't even that impressive. Like
Yeah.
it was a nice enough espresso machine, but like compared to like the like $35,000 espresso machines you have at your local coffee shop in your neighborhood, like it wasn't that crazy. So like I hope they like keep building on that in the future and like they get progressively more and more ridiculous with the like dugout coffee machine.
Yeah, they'll go from like Keurig to like Breville to like whatever like the progression is until they get to like the highest artisan Italian made espresso machine.
Yeah, you might even say that kind of reflects the progression of their team as they roster more and more actually Italian players.
Yeah, it's really exciting going forward. One of
Yeah,
the amateurs just signed, I know, a couple days or yesterday, so that was really cool.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, the 2023 WBC, amazing. We could just talk about it here for like hours and hours.
We could have a 5 hour podcast on just the WBC and still not even make it out of the pool stage.
Yeah, yeah. So, in the interest of time, for me, there was another thing in 2023 that I followed really closely, which was the 2023 European Baseball Championships, where the Netherlands, for the first time in since 2012, actually didn't win.
Mm.
Um, Spain won that championship, beating Great Britain in the final. For which crazy factoid was that was the first time since 1967 a team not named the Netherlands or Italy won the European Baseball Championships.
That is the wildest statistic ever. The fact that you can go like half a century with just two teams winning, it is just absurd.
And yeah, like I was like on the Wikipedia page scrolling and I was like, did Spain win like a European baseball championship before? And I see they did, and their flag was the Francisco Franco fascist Spain flag on the Wikipedia. And I was like, dude, that's crazy. Like,
That is insane.
like Franco with Spain was the last time that anyone like outside of Italy or the Netherlands won
The world
the
was very different back then.
yes. And do you know off the top of your head who the last non-Italy Netherlands team to win was in 1967?
No, I don't know. Who is it?
It's not someone you'd probably guess. It was Belgium.
Really?
Yeah, I
Oh,
saw that
that's
and
incredible.
I was like, really? Belgium?
I could have guessed probably 5 countries before Belgium and wouldn't have got to Belgium.
Yeah, I would have been like, oh yeah, Germany. They probably just had like a
Yeah.
bunch of US servicemen like playing
Yeah.
on the German team, claiming to be
Yeah.
German or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah. That's
but
so fascinating. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that tournament because with 2023 being the WBC, I kind of took a little bit of a break of like covering baseball that year. So I actually didn't get to watch much at all of the European Championships. Just really just like watching highlights on Twitter and seeing that Spain won after all those years. So like, what were some of the highlights from that?
one of the highlights I vividly remember was Germany. I think they walked it off versus France to win bronze because I am used to Germany just every single time there's anything on the line in international baseball, just completely choking, just
Uh,
every single time. And I could be wrong, but I think Yannick Walter, the Brewers catcher, in that third place game hit a walk off against France. Is France gonna win a bronze medal in baseball? Like after completely shitting the bed at the 2022 qualifiers, like is like this is crazy. Um, and of course they didn't. I vividly remember Ben Cuvier, like the 16-year-old French left-handed pitcher, like absolutely bodying Croatia, I think, for like 6 innings. I could be wrong, but like that was like a highlight, which was like, oh yeah, Europe actually produces prospects that MLB teams should care about, whether or not they do or not. Oh,
yeah.
another one. Who could forget? Sweden beat Italy. An Italy
Oh,
team.
yeah. I remember seeing that, and that is just the most odd thing, also. Like to see that in the box score is crazy.
Yeah, an Italy team with like affiliated minor leaguers lost to a Swedish two-way player named Per Sjors, who threw 8 innings of like two-run baseball against them.
Yeah, Italy, who has like a century of baseball history, and yet they still, I don't know what Sweden's like, how long baseball's even been a thing in Sweden. So that's pretty fascinating.
They have a pretty cool cap though. They have the three crown cap logo, like the three Swedish crowns on the cap.
Yeah, I love their cap. It's really cool. I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, but I remember like that happened, and then like they brought back the Team Euro versus Samurai Japan thing, and
Mm.
then like the Italian manager Mazzieri, like he picked the players for that, and then there were no Swedish people on the team, and I was like, dog, they literally beat you at the European Championships, and you didn't roster any Swedish people.
I think that was intentional. He was salty. He was like, I'm not taking any of them."
Yeah, probably. Honestly, I wouldn't put it past them. But another vivid memory, the Netherlands blowing it. Tom de Blok pitched a gem, like Tom de Blok scheduled masterclass. I think he went like 6, 7 strong innings, no runs or like 1 run. And then he got hurt, so they had to pull him. And then the remaining like 2 or 3 relievers for the Netherlands like blew like a 6 run lead or something crazy like that.
Oh, geez. Yeah,
And
that's
I was
brutal.
just like, you guys cannot be serious. Like, wow, guys. And then of course Spain didn't really. I mean, they kind of got revenge on Great Britain. They didn't really have much issue with them in the finals. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they
Yeah.
beat them 11-2. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. That's not even close.
and
Yeah,
that
it is interesting. I do remember that being a storyline as well, with it sort of being like a revenge narrative. I'm interested to see, I guess, how Spain looks in this next WBC cycle, and we'll get there too. But it is funny because it's like it kind of reminded me of Brazil losing the in when the World Cup, soccer World Cup in 2014, when it was in Rio and they lost to Germany, and then they came back and won the gold at the Olympics in 2016 when it was
right,
also in Brazil. It
right,
was like, yes, like they won, but also like it was sort of revenge or like redemption of some sort, but it wasn't the World Cup. And so it's like,
yeah, yeah,
like it's not quite as, it's not what we wanted, but it's like a good consolation. I kind of feel like that's how it was for Spain. Although the European Championship's a huge deal, but it
yeah.
is just funny how it's like, since that came after the WBC qualifiers, it's like, they're the ones that just played in the WBC, but we're going to beat them now.
Yeah, and I would have to double check the rosters, but I'm pretty sure the Spanish team at the Euros was significantly more Spanish than the qualifier team. Like Peter Bonilla was on that team, Dodgers prospect from I think he's from Barcelona, but I could be wrong.
Mm,
He had like I think he only pitched once, but like there was a game, I think it was Spain versus Austria, where it was Jorge Balboa, born in Spain, went like 7 innings, strong innings. Then Peter
yeah.
Bonilla pitched like 2 innings, and they beat Austria with an entirely Spanish, 1-2, which
Yeah.
is pretty cool. And I think that that tournament, feeding into this year's European Championship, kind of might be like, hey, we're seeing like some changes in the fabric of European baseball finally. Like
Yeah.
Spain is like, they get these players from the Caribbean to play, but like we're seeing more and more Spanish prospects go to US colleges, get like signed by US like affiliated teams. Like that wave might be coming. Germany, France, like is the German talent like U18 talent finally going to take that next step and get signed by MLB teams or go to college and be impact? France is like a really big like watch out for
Mm,
these guys because they have so many college players.
yeah.
So I'm really excited to see what the future of European baseball and the European Championships hold.
I'm really
Um,
hoping so. I'm hoping that that you that is true. This sort of like European Championship run for Spain, seeing a lot of those guys are Spanish born, and just the growth of domestically of these national teams. I hope that is ringing in a new era of European baseball, because there are just so many names that are so fun, that are just like either amateur players or are the lower levels of the minors from Europe, whether it's Italy or Germany or the Netherlands or uh, it's just it's so there's so much potential. And I think that as the WBC grows and they get more funding in some of these countries, the national teams will grow as the domestic talent grows, and so it'll be really cool to see if those are correlated for a long time.
yeah, Spain, I think, has a really good environment to like have this like kind of transition and natural growth because like they're Mediterranean climate. It's warm in Spain a lot of the year.
Mm,
They can
Yeah,
draw that same language speaking diaspora from an expertise from the Caribbean to
totally.
not only play in the Spanish league, but help coach their youth teams.
Mm,
And, we see mixed race, like Spanish Dominican players, like I think like Noelvi Marte is mixed race, like Spanish
mhm,
Dominican, but like Emil Morales, born in the Canary Islands, but I think
mhm.
raised in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, I
Like
think
those
so.
guys too. It's like
Angel Beltre, Dominican guy. Yeah,
yeah, I would be buying like if I could buy the stock, I'd buy the Spanish stock. Maybe.
that'd be cool because I won't say frustrating, but it is a little odd seeing them compete in every qualifiers for the WBC and it not be made up of mostly Spanish players. Like it would be really cool to see it made up of Spanish born and raised and developed players to actually back up that national team. Because like you said, there is a lot of potential.
Yeah, which is like in my potential roster, like I included Anderson Pena and Andres Pena and Juan Salazar, who are all like those like kind of college age,
Mm.
actually Spanish prospects, like from those U18 teams. Like, are they going to be rostered at the qualifiers? Like, probably not, if I'm being honest. But
Yeah, yeah,
like Spain could absolutely roster them, start them all against South Africa to save depth for Nicaragua
yeah,
and Taiwan and be totally fine. Let's be honest. Like
yeah, yeah.
I would
They'll be
not
fine.
stress if you did like if you had like Yeri Perez of the Royals, who's very raw, like start the game. He was born in Madrid against South
Mhm.
Africa. And then you follow him with Juan Salazar and Diego Alcala, all these youngsters. I don't think they're in any danger of losing to South Africa.
Yeah, I think they should be fine.
Yeah. But like with that, I'm good to move on in 2024 if you are.
Yeah, totally. Let's do it.
Yeah, so this last year, maybe a little bit quieter for like big events, for like international baseball, but it's still very fresh in my head. Um, First thing I want to talk about is the U23 World Cup, which was hosted in China, like mainland China. Like it was at a
Yeah,
very impressive modern stadium, and China finished fourth. Like
yeah,
they beat
yeah.
a lot of like, traditionally strong baseball countries, and got all the way like out of that first like pool stage, and almost got like a bronze medal or into on the podium, if you will, out of that. Granted, the level of competition wasn't super great. Like looking at the Netherlands team, like they had Dylan Farley and washed Daryl Collins after he got released, but like they didn't have Semra Bersa, who would have been eligible. I think they didn't have R.A. Franson. Like they didn't have like their complex league guys on that team. So it wasn't quite as, the level of competition wasn't all the way there.
Yeah.
But like that's still really impressive because for years and years and years, MLB has been begging and trying to get baseball to be a thing in China. And like we might finally be seeing some like actual progress, which will be something we can talk about with the upcoming WBCQ.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because, like you said, there has been so much investment in China, and I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that that China would be just the absolute biggest market to try to tap into. Every sport is trying to do that, and so if baseball is actually growing from like on a grassroots level, developing young players to come to whether it's affiliated ball or even playing NPB or like KBO, that would be massive for the baseball world because there really hasn't been much traction over the last decade or two.
Yeah.
But seeing a China team that won the U23 World Cup, or even correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was the very end of 2023 or beginning of 2024 when China played, I think it was just a friendly, but they played against Japan and beat the Japanese national team for
Yeah,
the
yeah,
first
sounds
time
right.
ever in history. Like they had never beat Japan in baseball ever. And they actually beat them, even though it was Japan's like D team. It's like
Yeah,
they didn't
yeah.
have any of their MPV, but that doesn't matter because it's like the fact that those are still like essentially minor league NPB players playing against Chinese players, and the China team won. Like that is just it's very encouraging if you're a Team China fan. And they cannot find China can't find their way out of qualifiers. They always end up being in the WBC or now in qualifiers. So if they can actually put together a team of like homegrown players, that's going to be massive because we know that they have plenty of MLB players that are either of Chinese descent or are like Chinese American. And so they got a couple of those guys, but you have to have the homegrown talent too for a team like China to be able to compete in qualifiers for the WBC. And the U23 World Cup was huge for them to see them to compete at that level.
Yeah, like someone said, like they just need like the baseball Yao Ming. Like
Yeah,
he doesn't even have to be like particularly good. Like if he's like serviceable, like
yeah.
that will do so much for MLB's presence in China and baseball as a whole in
Even if
China.
he just makes his debut, it doesn't even matter if he has like a long career. Makes his debut, plays a couple seasons. That should already be enough.
Yeah, yeah. And talking about untapped baseball markets, I think this segues into the next thing I want to talk about, which was the Arab Classic held by Baseball United, um,
Yeah.
which I have been on record being very critical of Baseball United. I think rightly so for a lot of things they do that I don't like. But this was one of the things they did pretty well. Not being able to see the rosters or the box scores on the website for it, pretty rough, not gonna lie. But like building a actual base, like a dedicated baseball field in the UAE, like putting this thing together, having like really good looking uniforms. Like that Palestine uniform looks pretty clean. Like that cap they had looks pretty clean.
Oh yeah.
Um, and like putting it all together, having it go even with their weird like shortened gamed rules, and just like having it happen and have people tune in, that's so cool. And
Yeah.
I think that has to be like an unmitigated success even with all the hiccups, um, because like I think about MLB's strategy with China, and I wonder why they aren't trying it out with India. Because India is a tradition; they have a tradition of like ball and stick sports with cricket. A large amount of their population speaks English. There's a
Hmm.
large diaspora to pull from, like Kumar Rocker with
Hmm.
the Texas Rangers. That feels like another natural like market you can do a lot with, especially with Pakistan, because that is a huge sports rivalry. I mean, it's
Oh
also
yeah.
a big geopolitical rivalry, that there's a lot to unpack with it, but like, leveraging those rivalries to build the game is really cool. That's why part of me wishes China was it in the Taiwan pool. But, also I don't want World War III to start. Although they did play against each other at the 2008 Olympics, and that was the one game China won. They beat Taiwan in 2008.
That's very interesting to think about. But yeah, it would be there's going to be a lot of things that happen, I think, before MLB puts China and Taiwan in the same pool for the WBC. But with with Baseball United, yeah, the fact that we had the Arab Classic, we got to see so many of these. I'll say like the vast majority of those national teams that played, I had never seen a single game of those national teams. So just for that alone was just the coolest thing to see, like these countries play on a national team, like international style event. Um, could be the start of something big. Who knows? We'll see what kind of growth Baseball United has. I think that they have the backing. Like they have very much have the ownership group to be able to sustain long-term growth. They signed like a 15-year deal with the I think it was Saudi Arabian Cricket Federation and the UAE's Cricket Federation. So like they have the longevity. So we'll see what they can do now with like actually building domestic talent, which I know that is one of the things they want to do as well, their priorities. But with the Arab Classic, it was really cool. It was super cool to see all of the national teams competing against each other.
Yeah, I think like at the core of what Baseball United is trying to do, I think the idea has legs. Like I
Yeah,
think that the market they're trying to tap into, what they're trying to do, definitely can work. It's just, is the execution going to be there? Um,
yeah.
Final thing in 2024, I think of is the Premier 12. We get the Premier 12 back for the first time since 2019, I think.
Hmm.
And it was again kind of an unhinged tournament. Like that Mexico group was pretty unhinged, all things considered. I will
Yeah.
never, ever, ever forgive um, Evert van ter Hoorn, the Dutch manager, for not going to Hayden Estenista when he was available. And
Yeah.
instead letting like blowing the lead versus Mexico when he had his best reliever available. Just
Uh,
I would have fired him on the spot for that, honestly. But you know, Taiwan wins the Premier 12 with a team that like I'm being honest, like not me, not Jeff Duda. We did not think they were going to do anything. We were like, yeah, they're not making it out of that first pool, and they win the whole thing and prove us wrong.
yeah, someone lit a fire under their butt because I don't know anyone that really predicted them to win. But that team looked great. Like they performed, like they played incredibly throughout the tournament. I was so happy to see them win. I just felt like I don't know. I just felt like they deserved it. They seeing a lot of those players that hadn't won, um, I guess like they got relegated out of qualifiers. That was a big hit to them. And so seeing them be able to bounce back, even without all of the players, like not even every top player that they could have had was in the W in on the roster. But seeing them bounce back from being relegated out of WBC in 2023 to winning the Premier 12 in 2024 was really cool to see. It was pretty heartwarming.
Yeah,
But yeah, there's a bunch of players from that tournament that were a lot of fun to watch. I remember that's when I've really liked following Matt Shaw, but I think that's when the world started to like start to fall in love with him for those first
yeah.
couple games when he was hitting like I don't know, like 700 for the first like 4 games of the tournament. It was crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Like the that Taiwan team definitely kind of felt like not to knock the players, but like definitely one of those the whole is greater than the sum of the parts kind of
Mm,
thing. Like the chemistry was insane.
yeah,
Like almost like Czechia 2022-esque where like a lot like they really came together to defy the odds and what everyone, you know, said about them. Although I think Czechia was the highest rated seed in that qualifier, but after they got punched in the face by Spain,
yeah,
maybe it kind of changed the perception. But you know, the
yeah.
Premier 12, I think it was a huge success. Like the danger of it turning into yeah, who's coming second to Japan like tournament was there, and
Hmm.
thankfully, you know that maybe not thankfully if you're Yaku Cosmopolitan, but like you know, thankfully, kind of that didn't happen, and there's more variety there. And we know the Premier 12 is expanding in the future, which we can talk about in a couple minutes.
Yeah, yeah. It's not for Yaku Cosmopolitan, but I think for the general baseball fan that likes competition, there needs to be some people that can compete with Japan on the international stage because they've just dominated every event that they've played in for the last decade. And it was really cool to see Taiwan beat them. I love the Japanese team, like Samurai Japan, is just
Oh
always
yeah.
so much fun to watch. But that being said, it was really cool to see them lose because they just win everything. And I even saw like Japanese fans posting that they're like, "Man, props to this Taiwan team! Like it was bound to happen eventually." And so it was cool that Taiwan was the one that won, that beat them. I think that Yumin Lin, like going into this season, really made a name for himself on the international stage as well. So that'll be
Yeah.
cool to see. Um, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, I like my first experience with the WBC in 2017 when I was in high school was being watching Japan in the Netherlands. So like, you
Yeah.
know, I love Japanese baseball. I go to MPB games when I'm in the country. But yeah, it was great to see Taiwan beat them, get to Shosei Togo, like a real,
Yeah.
impact arm. Yu Min Lin masterclass. That guy pitched so much this past year. He pitched so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. And unless you have anything else to talk about in 2024, like that is what has happened so far in this decade done with, I think, and covered.
Yeah. I think so. That sums it up pretty well.
And so with that, that is like this half decade in review so far. So now we're going to talk a little bit about kind of what we expect to see in this next half of the decade. But we'll try to keep it a little bit shorter, just because there's so many tangents we could go off of, and there's 5 years to cover. So I think let's start, very in the very near future, 2025 this year, we've got the WBCQs right around the corner.
Yeah, we're almost there. We're super close, just a couple months away. I think that this will be when I think about the 2025 WBC qualifiers, I think that this will be the first time that more of the baseball world, like, and when I say baseball world, American, Western, like MLB based baseball world is going to actually tune into the WBC qualifiers because even in 2022, not really many people watched or cared in the US. And so I think that with the success of the 2023 WBC, we're going to actually see some people tune in, which will be fun because it won't just be, granted, it was a ton of fun for it just to be like five of us like watching qualifiers in
Yeah, yeah.
2022. But I love the growth. I love to see the growth of the tournament. So it'll be really cool to see that in 2025.
Yeah, I think you literally called me out in the chat room on YouTube in 2022 when you were like, "Hey, are you this person on Twitter?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's me." Because I
Yeah,
was
I
using like
remember that. Yeah.
yeah, because I was using my real name.
Yeah.
Um But yeah, like it being free, I think probably
Yeah.
having Tyler Mon commentating, hopefully Ryan Roland Smith. I love those guys to death. They're so great. And
Yeah.
hopefully having a couple MLB players playing there, like it could get some serious attention. Like
Yeah.
Brendan Donovan, Max Kepler in Tucson going crazy for Germany. That'd be awesome. Like, you know, um, Noelvi Marte, probably not Mark Vientos, but like maybe Pete Alonso, probably not, but like those kind of guys. Taylor Scott of the Houston Astros, best Houston
Yeah.
Astros bullpen piece in 2024. Taylor Scott pitching for South Africa would be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a
Surely
lot of
they'll,
names. There's some really, I mean, and then you got Colombia. They have plenty of MLB players, like
yeah.
players on like MLB teams that could actually play in qualifiers that like if they play in qualifiers, that could raise the profile of these qualifiers as well. I know you and I have talked about Bo Bichette. If he was to play, that would be huge for Brazil and
Mhm.
for MLB and for the WBC. We'll see how many of them actually do play. I hope we at least get a couple big names.
Yeah.
The closer that we get to it with not much news, the more worried I get.
Yeah, a little
But
bit.
yeah, but we'll see. I think we'll have some fun names for sure.
Yeah, I know the Germany training camp roster came out, and it was basically all the usual suspects. It was like Niklas Rimmel, Sven Schuler, Marcus Solbach,
Yeah,
um, a lot of those guys. You know, could see a Brian Wu for China, which would be crazy. Um, but yeah,
yeah,
it's super exciting.
yeah. The Brian Wu one, I'm actually really interested to hear. I guess your brief take on that or the research you've done because I've tried to do. I've looked into his ancestry a little bit, and I cannot actually confirm that he's Chinese. I've seen a couple sources that say he's might be Korean, might be Chinese. Did you find any information that shows that he actually is of Chinese descent?
I haven't done any searching myself on him specifically. Jeff Duda told me he should be eligible, and to me, Jeff Duda's word is basically law. Like he's
Yeah,
able to find, like he's like on his off day, flying to Oakland, California, and going through the county birth records to find Brian Woo's parentage or whatever.
Yeah.
Bay Area legend Brian Woo, he will get a hero's welcome in Oakland's Chinatown if he pitches for China, if he's actually Chinese, surely.
Yeah.
Um,
That would be awesome. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear Jeff's take on that because I've tried all the resources that I've used previously to find like descent and ancestry of players. Cannot find it for Brian Wu, but like there have been a couple people that said he was Chinese. So I just wanted I'm trying to confirm it because like I want to make sure that like we actually know because if he was to play for China, that would be huge for them.
yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. But yeah,
Yeah.
qualifiers are going to be awesome, man. There's going to be some unfortunately, like we previously mentioned, it's not as many teams as we wanted. There's some national teams that are left out, but we'll go with what we have. I'm really excited to see Taiwan. I think Nicaragua will have a decent team. Spain, yeah, I would say. I mean, I don't know what your projections are, but like I would say Taiwan and Spain are the odds-on favorites to coming out of Taiwan and out of Taipei. And then I would say Tucson is a little bit more to like three teams. I would assume. I don't expect China to win because like to advance because I don't think that they're going to have too many MLB affiliated players. We'll see. I know that they have a couple on their training camp team, and that could help put them over the edge. But Colombia could be a team full of affiliated players with some MLB players. Brazil, and you're the Germany expert. I think that Brazil and Germany are going to be close. I'm a little bit underwhelmed with the news that I've heard from Brazil's
Yeah.
roster. I think that they could have a great team, but I don't know if they actually will.
We,
So
we
we'll
have
see.
we have Bo Bichette at home. Bo Bichette at home. Dante Bichette Jr. hasn't played since 2020 or whatever.
Oh, yeah, we'll
Um,
see. I'm
yeah,
curious to see what that looks like.
a lot of it's going to come down to rosters. To Spain, I gotta believe Spain's going to be even better than they were in 2022, and that's saying a lot because their record doesn't really do them justice. Like they came really close to qualifying, they just kind of ran out of gas.
Yeah.
Um, so especially if Mark Vientos doesn't play for Nicaragua. And maybe if they can't even get like Jeter Downs, like I'm very worried about them there. But yeah, Brazil, the Colombia's probably going to qualify. Brazil, Germany is going to come down to rosters, and China probably going to be their best team they've ever fielded at the WBC. But 10 times zero is still zero, or 10 times 0.25 is not a whole lot. No offense to
Yeah.
them. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm looking forward to it. Another 2025 narrative I think that we're going to see is the most born and developed Europeans in the majors ever. We saw Sam Aldegheri come up for the Angels. He looked kind of good, and then he got hurt. I gotta believe Sam Robertson will debut with the Cardinals if he isn't
Mhm.
hurt. Adam Macko with the Blue Jays, probably. The Reds are crazy people. They promote anyone who does anything. So R.A. Franson could be in the majors come like the All-Star break. Alessandro Urcolani of San Marino, maybe a little bit less, but because the Pirates are very like, hey, you play well, we promote you one level. Next year, you will promote one more level. They don't like rushing their prospects. And so, he might make it to like double or triple A this year, but maybe not the
Yeah.
majors. But, if he really balls out, he could be playing for the Pirates. Um,
Yeah, we could see him in like September if they're like out of it and they're just like, hey, he's balling out in double A or triple A. Like, let's give him a couple innings. That'd be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, so that'll be a narrative to pay attention to, and that kind of feeds into the 2025 European Championship. With all of these like lower level minor European prospects who should start getting promoted, like we can see a revamp of the Netherlands pitching staff. Like
Hmm.
Hayes van den Brink, people forget he beat Japan at the U18 World Cup like 2 years ago. He put on a masterclass. These Spanish players in U.S. colleges could, be on that team, and it'll be a really fun European Championship to watch.
Yeah.
Then we move to 2026, and we get to the WBC again. Um, and it's probably going to be the coolest WBC since, the 2023 edition. I hope to be there. You hope to be there. I know Jeff hopes to be there. Everyone's going to be there, hopefully.
I think so. I hope so. Let's see. Well, I hope to meet you for the first time and actually in person. That would be really cool if it's in whether it's in the Houston pool or one of the other pools or in finals in Miami. That would be a lot of fun. I definitely plan on going. But yeah, I think that this is going to be. I think 2023 was the WBC where the narrative shifted from the general consensus of MLB fans saying this isn't worth it. This is just a friendly tournament. It's not an actual like World Cup level thing. This is pointless. Just an exhibition. 2023 was the shift to where like there's still those voices, absolutely, but now it's like no, this is like actually legitimate. Like we want to see our players in this. Like this is a really cool thing and good for baseball. And even with the injuries, like in 2017, it was the injuries were like, oh, let's shut the WEC down. Like this isn't worth it. Like it's not worth the injuries. In 2023, MLB fans were finally starting to like turn on that and be like, yeah, this sucks. Edwin Diaz, Jose Altuve, but like this is still our premier event in international baseball. So I think the 2026 will just build on that even more. I think that the momentum will continue, and as it continues to grow in popularity, and just honestly, like just as American fans get more comfortable and used to international, like national team level competition, because we haven't really had that in baseball before to this level. I think as they get just more comfortable with it, I think the WBC will continue to grow into World Cup level tournament. I think that this is our sports premier event, and WBC, like the 2026 one, will be just massive.
Yeah, I totally agree. The next big step that needs to happen to legitimize it to American fans is you got to get like Logan Webb and Paul Skeens to pitch for the team. And
100%.
Paul Skeens, Air Force Academy guy, played for the
Yes.
USA at Honkball Week Harlem one year, saluted the flag. Like, I think he'll be there unless something crazy happens.
I think that there's no doubt in my mind that he wants to play. Like he played at the youth levels. He played, like you said, Honkball Week, like Harlem Week Honkball, like that. Like he loves Team USA, Air Force Academy. Like he has all these pictures of him on Team USA on his like Instagram feed. So I know he wants to be on the team. And I have him in like my projections, like that I made last year for 20, like the way too early predictions for 2026. I have him as like in like the ace for Team USA. I hope he's healthy. I hope he actually plays, because that would be massive for the tournament.
Yeah. And also in 2026 is the Premier 12 expanded qualifiers. Premier 16, Premier 20, Premier 12. I don't know. I don't know why they didn't change the name. It's whatever. But those should be fun. Getting to see a lot of those like, lower ranked nations competing with each other, along with some wild cards. Um, and then I think that segues us to 2027, where we're going to see the next edition of the Premier 12, which, hopefully just keeps building on the success we've seen here, which I think will be the case. I'm excited to see who comes out of the qualifiers for it. But another thing in 2027 that I think is going to happen is a reform to the posting system for MPB, because it has been almost 10 years since we last had the reform to it, which was right before Otani came over. And man, is the system showing its age. Like Yaki Cosmopolitan just did a great video about Rintaro Sasaki and the California Athletics of the western half of the United States in Las Vegas and incorporated territories signed. I think Shotaro Mori.
Yes. Yep.
Talking about how there needs to be reform to the posting system, and it's overdue. I think it's going to happen in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I hope so. I think that would be really cool to see. I don't know if even MLB expected to see so many Japanese players, or having we couldn't have expected Shohei Otani. Like MLB, even knowing like even international fans knowing who Shohei Ohtani was, I don't think any MLB personnel knew the impact that he was going to have. So the influx of Japanese players to MLB, or just to the U.S., like Rintaro Sasaki in college at Stanford, all of that, this influx and this increase in Japanese players coming over, very much needed for a revamp on the posting system for sure.
Yeah. And like Cosmo said in his video, what are the reforms? I don't know. I also
Yeah.
do not know. That something
Yeah.
needs to happen, but I don't know what the something is.
Y'all need to change something. I don't know what it is, and I can't even, like, I'm not going to be the one that changes it, but you should change it.
Yes, exactly. Moving on to 2028. I think this might be like the biggest year in the next 5 years, just in terms of like what might get affected, because it's the LA Olympics, baby. And there
Yeah.
is no way MLB does not let Shohei Ohtani play for Team Japan in the Olympics at Dodger Stadium. There is no way in this wide blue world that they let that opportunity pass them by.
No. There's no, that is the storyline of all storylines that you could ever hope of writing if you were MLB. Like, that is, there's no way. And he's like, at that point, he's in the latter half of his career. Like, you don't even know how many more opportunities you're going to get. Like, you have to capitalize on that.
Yeah, if he keeps the foot on the gas and comes back from his pitching injury, like he might be better than he is even now. And like he's, getting into that Hall of Fame like conversation more and more. And if they let MLB players play in 2028 at the Olympics, it opens a whole can of worms. Because if you
Mm-hmm.
do that, I don't think you can remove baseball from the Olympics ever again.
No, that would be really hard. That'd be really hard to backtrack from that. And the fact that like, how are you supposed to say no to Shohei Ohtani, Bryce Harper already saying like years in advance, like we need to play in the Olympics. Like they're already calling for it. Or even number 1 overall draft pick, Travis Bazzana. He's like, I'm playing in the Olympics. Like if they let me, I'm playing. And then you're like, he's looking forward to even the next Olympics, which will
Yes.
be in Australia. Like
Yeah.
that's another storyline. It's like him playing on his home turf, like as at that point a very established MLB player. You can't let that pass up, and we have like Australia can actually have a national team in baseball too. Like
Yes.
a very established team that could compete in the Olympics. So going from, like you said, the implications moving forward from LA are massive.
Yeah, and that's going to be so fun to watch. I think it's like, yeah, especially as the Olympics kind of transition to this like more sustainable-ish model of like really big cities and big companies who can financially, or not big companies, big countries who can
Mm-hmm.
financially support the games and use pre-existing facilities. Like that kind of lends itself more to like supporting baseball because a lot of those countries are kind of naturally countries that have like national baseball teams that they can field. Um,
Yeah.
Also in 2028, I'd expect to see Team Curacao break off from the Netherlands. Um, I think that like the age of the Netherlands like dominance is kind of over. I think that's going to be like the final nail in the coffin because it's not just Curacao. Curacao has signed an agreement with Aruba that they are also taking all the Aruban players. So it's not like, hey, we lost Curacao, whatever. We still have Xander Bogaerts and Dejan Makaras, Giants legend, just signed. Like it's kind of over. Um, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's going to be really interesting. I think that 20 that last year, 24, with how close they got to actually competing separate of the Netherlands, it'll be really interesting going forward.
Yeah, with how close they got to competing separately of the Netherlands, that was clearly their intention. They weren't able to make it happen. But at the same time, the head of the Curacao Baseball Federation had mentioned, like, he's very much open to continuing to compete under the Kingdom of the Netherlands as long as they get a say in how things are run and get the funding for that. Now, they're not getting that, and so that's why they wanted to compete separately. But if this was enough of a wake-up call for the Netherlands to actually like provide them that funding and let them have like equal say in how the baseball is run for at the national team level. Like that could be enough for them to compete together in 2028 and 9 and in the future tournaments. But the trend is that's not looking like not looking like the case. It looks like they're going to compete separately.
Yeah. And past 2028, like near the end of the decade, 2029, 2030, it's pretty far away, hard to forecast, but we've got another WBC. I think a storyline could be the first non-South African team maybe qualifying or at least showing up in Uganda. I fully expect to see a Ugandan MLB player in the next 5 years. David Matoma is crazy talented if he doesn't blow his arm out for the Pirates. 2030, another Premier 12, another Premier 12 qualifiers, and hopefully just continuing to build into the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that first of all, I can't believe we just covered an entire decade. That is crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
And like 2030 feels like so far off, but like we're as close to 2030 as we are to 2020. Like,
Oh my God.
that's just like baffling to me to think about. But I think to me, it really all boils down to like, I personally believe, and I know that you probably agree, that the future of baseball is international. Like, I think that as baseball moves to like continues to develop and grow in all of these countries that it's not traditionally played, Uganda, Brazil, like we have so many countries, Pakistan, India, even like but Arjun Nimala, the Nimala brothers, if they end up debuting soon in MLB, that could be another, like you said, Yao Ming for India. I think that as baseball continues to grow around the world, I think that these international tournaments will grow, and that's the future of baseball. Like even with people, some people love MLB, but it's not nearly as popular as NPB is in Japan or KBO is in Korea. So it's not the only baseball we have. I know I'm preaching to the choir, like you understand this, but just for like the general and like baseball MLB fan base, there's just so much more than MLB. And as we see it grow around the world, I think that just like the World Cup is the center of the soccer world, the WBC, it will be the center of the baseball world.
Yeah. And like you said, it's far away, but it's also not far away. It's crazy to think about what I could be doing in 2029. Like, am I watching the WBC live, watching Paul Hoff throw a no-hitter for Germany in like 6 innings as they mercy rule like Uganda or something with my kids or something crazy like that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane to think about what the next like 5, 10 years are going to bring for international baseball. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
Rentaro Sasaki up to bat to like walk it off against the Dominican Republic, where like Adrian Beltre's son is like leading the team in the middle of the lineup or
Yeah.
something like that. It's just like so many things could happen.
Yeah, San Francisco Giants legend Rintaro Sasaki, undoubtedly Stanford guy. We love our Stanford guys in the Bay. Hits a long double to walk off the game and bring in Koji Uehara's son Kaz from second base.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Um, so yeah, I'm so excited, and I'm so excited and happy that we have this awesome community online on Twitter, x.com, whatever you want to call it, on Reddit and Discord and Facebook, where all these fans can come together and talk international baseball.
Yeah, it's really special. It really is a really fun community to be a part of. And yeah, it's fun. We're all like doing it together. We're learning all of these like sicko obscure facts about international baseball, but we're all doing it together.
Yeah, I joke that like 75% of the like world facts I learn now are through international baseball.
I get that. I completely agree. There's like so many random geography like tidbits I have now because of baseball.
Yeah, the cocktail party conversation starter of, do you know where the largest population of Japanese people live outside of Japan?
Oh,
California? No, Brazil.
that comes up, I swear, like weekly. Like people are always so confused by that, and it's funny. Or like how I'll like be like having a conversation with someone about like like I just was talking to a friend earlier today. He lives in Spain, and I was like, "Oh, did you know that if you are from this country, like if you're from Mexico and your parents are this, like you could be eligible for the national team of Spain?" And he's like, "I didn't know and I didn't care, but thank you for telling me."
Yeah, exactly. How can you not be romantic about international baseball?
Amen.
And with that, I think we're basically done here. So why don't you tell the people what you're up to, where they can find you, and all that good stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So, for those that don't know me, I cover international baseball across social medias. My goal is to help cover baseball globally with an international lens. And so what that culminates in is the World Baseball Classic. Like I cover everything WBC related. I think that baseball is global and I post all over social media about it. Traditionally it's been Twitter, X, and I will continue doing that for sure as much as I have in the past. But actually, recently I've moved over also to Instagram and I'm going to heavily hit that in 2025. So it's at Shawn_Spradling across socials. If you have TikTok and it exists in a week, then you can also find me there. But yeah, I would be happy to chat with anyone that loves international baseball or the WBC.
Yeah. Thank you, Shawn. I had so much fun talking to you. This was great. Let's do it again sometime. Yeah. And people in the podcast, be on the lookout for more content from me as I try to push it out around my work schedule. It's a struggle. Yeah, that's it. So, see ya.